Hey everyone, welcome back to Old World Legends, where we focus on growing the community. I'm your host, Mike, and with me as always is Evan.
Elfie Evan today, I think.
You're Elfie a lot of days, actually. Just depends
I
on the
am an
day.
elf
Uh,
enjoyer, okay, and an elf defender.
uh, That's true. Well, I used to have a high elf army. I love that army. It was a great army. I sold it some years ago, but I'm excited to get some elves in the future. But we're not here to talk about high elves. We're here to talk about wood elves. There seem to be next coming out from GW. Really excited about this. This
Yeah,
is, I think, it's debatable what is the most popular elf army because, quite frankly, they're all really popular. They really are. They're classics, they're iconic, and really having that really distinct identity visual art style from the high elves to the dark elves to the wood elves has always been iconic to Warhammer the Old World, which is exciting. But you haven't been able to get your hands on these models for forever since honestly since 8th edition. They retired this range. It wasn't available in AOS, and so many people wanted to start a wood elf army when this edition came out, but it's finally going to become available again.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I'm super excited to get into Wood Elves at some point as army number 8 or 9 or whatever. I lost count.
But you're just going to collect them all. That's inevitable.
Yes, yes, and we have Orion, nice little mostly naked man. Gotta love that.
He's pretty awesome. But yeah, let's dive into. They did share a whole bunch of the information on the article.
Yeah,
So let's just kind of go through it and talk about what we're excited about. I mean, honestly, we're excited about a lot of it. But first and foremost, looking at the Arcane Journal, love that cover art. That's super cool, right? Orion front and center. He's got his wolves next to him. It's like, are there any other hidden? I'm always curious with these Arcane Journals. Are there any secrets or hidden gems or a new model or a refresh somewhere that they haven't revealed yet that they're hitting in that artwork? You never really know.
yeah. Oh, we see the Wild Riders here, which is really cool.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we see, I think these are the beasts, the beast packs. So he's got those like wolves or dogs or whatever that go with Orion.
Hmm. Hmm.
So obviously, you
Yeah.
kind of have this horde of kind of motley crew of different melee elves just running at you, which is great. Love that. And I
Yes.
really like the
Fantastic.
stags as well. The stags are great. Do they do impact
Yeah.
hits? I feel like they should with their big old antlers.
I don't know that they do, but I know they're incredibly fast and they're a fantastic unit. So those models were great when they came out. They still hold up, in my opinion. They're really fantastic. They're dynamic. I just love them.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe there's a word answer over here.
Yeah, I think it's a war dancer, and I think you have a spell singer in the background. They're kind of caster.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got a good representation. But at the moment, don't currently see any hidden models there. But maybe it's because I just don't know what
Oh
it
wait,
is
no,
yet.
Mike,
So
Mike, it's the trees. Those are the secret sauces. All the trees. We're
I
gonna get
don't
the
know about
re-release
that.
of the Citadel Wood. It's coming.
Yeah, maybe. All right, cool. So, did they give us any more information about the Arcane Journal? I know we did a previous episode. We were brainstorming what we were hoping. The Hunt was one of them.
Yeah,
But what
Wild
else did
Hunt.
they tell us today?
So
Okay.
Erloth, Lord Talzin is the other army of infamy. So there's the host of Talsin, which is apparently a kind of a eternal guard kind of spearman, sword and board type, like wood elf list.
Okay.
There's going to be these kindreds, which are going to have additional character flavor, similar to like the high elf honor system, where you can kind of buy
Oh,
and
nice.
upgrade for specific characters, sometimes depending on what mount choice they have. Like some of them are 1 foot only, for example. Um,
Hmm.
so those are definitely going to spice things up for a lot of different army builds. I think that Orion's Wild Hunt is mentioned to be very kind of melee and assault focused. I can imagine you probably will see things like either a core unit of Wild Riders or some kind of like more lesser Wild Riders maybe as like a core unit, because they tend to be doing that, like kind of putting core in there. If you take the sacrifice of potentially like not having a wizard or not having the strongest stuff in the list, you can
Right.
have a really cool core unit, right? And I think, hey, if Wild Riders are core, then I don't know. I mean, maybe big unit, like
Definitely excited for that Orion list. I think it's gonna
yeah,
be really awesome. In particular, I love that it's a melee focused list, something that I think will give some good variety to it. I think
mm-hmm.
what we were also hoping for is more of a treeman or dryad list, perhaps as one of their arcane journals, but instead they have this different direction. So again,
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what this means. It's one of those things that people have been, looking for. Give me more reasons to take infantry, in particular with the Wood Elf army and such, those spearmen. So I am very curious and eager to see what that army brings, what's its rules, what it's bringing to the battlefield that's unique and exciting. Of course, a whole bunch of new magic items, which is always great to see
Yeah.
the army fleshed out with those.
Yeah, and we just recently did our Wood Elf review book, and one of the things that kind of struck me is that there's a ton of magic items in there that don't really do anything for like a melee unit. Like there's a lot of
Hmm.
like for example, there's a banner that gives the unit ignores cover, which is great for shooting, but does do nothing at all for combat. So there weren't really any banners that take, let's say, a Wild Rider unit or an Eternal Guard unit and make them fight better. There wasn't really anything
Hmm.
that did
Hmm.
that, and it would be really cool to see a couple more abilities or kindreds, for example, that could
Hmm.
juice up those units and make you be like really excited to kind of combo, right?
And I think that's always the exciting thing when the Arcane Journal drops. It's not just what are the new pieces they're dropping, but what synergies and new combos can be created from the new stuff combining with the old stuff, right? Suddenly, something that didn't look as appealing and exciting before is really useful or has a whole new breath on life because you're comboing with something new. So that's always really exciting to see those drop.
So now we have the battalion. Now we saw this a little while ago, but can I just mention? Not only do we have a battalion full of some of the best kits in the Wood Elf list, but two of the
Hmm.
kits, so the Spearmen and the Wild Riders and stuff, they are double kits. So if you were to buy like two battalions, you could have a lot of combos and a lot of extra bits to then kit bash the rest of your stuff together with. I think this is
Hmm.
potentially the best battalion box I've seen them release for Old World. I mean, I don't know what competes with
It's
it.
fantastic. It's so good, and it's giving you exactly what you want. You will want to double down on two of these for sure. And again, the big thing about it, like these models still they're very newish, relatively speaking, right? These were some of the later released models in the old edition of Warhammer Fantasy, and they still look fantastic in my opinion. They're all plastic. They have multiple within the kits. You can build typically two units with a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Comes with a lot of bits. I love these models so much. I'm so excited to see them back on the battlefield.
Yeah, I love how big these banners are as well. I'm hoping that we're going to see some transfer sheets, something like that.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and the Asrai Bowmen, I'm super excited about that. I really like their aesthetic. They're so unique. In fact, I have kind of one of the things that kind of took the wind out of my sails is that before these models existed, I really wanted to play Wood Elf, so I started trying to like get 3D prints and stuff. And there aren't any models that have the same aesthetic vibe and the same proportions and really feel wood elfy. It's elves are very segmented in terms of their aesthetics. Only match one of those three flavors. So if you have like
Hmm.
an elf model, you can try to paint it a bit different, but it's like, man, this is just a high elf. It doesn't look like a wood elf, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's a testament to the artists that they
yeah,
created such iconic, art styles and aesthetics that there is very clear, distinct identity. You can immediately tell that's a high elf, that's a dark elf, that's a wood elf,
yeah,
because the art team over the years, the different artists have done such a great job.
yeah. And the Eternal Guard using their two-handed spears is super neat. I've always loved that look. So super
Hmm.
excited. I think that the host of Talzin should have some kind of way to make them even cooler. Although I already think that Eternal Guard are the best. Like if you were just talking about an individual model and you don't care about how many points they cost, the Eternal Guard are the best spearmen in the game by far. Like who's better at being a
Hmm.
spearman, right?
Hmm.
Like that's awesome. Now they cost as much as Phoenix Guard, but they're really cool. Like that's amazing. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah. Oh yeah. So they do. They said transfer sheets. So with 186 transfers. Now I mean, a lot of the stuff doesn't necessarily have a good spot to put it. But you know what I've been doing recently is I've been putting my transfers on cloaks, and that looks amazing. So my Sisters of
Hmm.
Avalorn and my Phoenix Guard have transfers on all their cloaks. It looks great.
Well, I think you're looking at the front of the models. They're very
Yeah.
busy, you're not seeing that, but a lot of the Wood Elf models have these billowing cloaks and cloth and such. So I think from the side or the rear view of the models, there's fantastic canvas to put awesome decals on. And those dice, I love those dice. I don't even have a Wood Elf army. I just want those dice.
I
They're
kind of
just
feel the same way. I really like the
they're
dice a lot.
they might be my favorite old world dice that they have released yet. I love that it has right the Gemini look of the swirl inside of it. The six symbol. I really like the symmetry of it. They're clean, they're easy to read. I love those dice. I'm definitely going to pick up a set of those.
Yeah, the you can't really argue that the kind of the Celtic style runes that go on the wood elves, it just has such an immediate evocative look to it. I,
Hmm.
I've actually I've kind of started planning out my color scheme with these guys. I have kind of they all have red hair. They're basically like Brave, the Disney movie.
Nice.
um, yeah. So I mean, obviously we have these reference cards. Man, what a luxury to have the reference cards because it's like couple magic items, couple spells. Although you know what, they're gonna have their own spell lore. So hey, maybe the reference
Oh,
cards are gonna be really, really useful because If this is going to
Did,
include the spell cards, I can't live without
did
that.
it say they're going to get an entire new lore, or they're just going to get a few new
That
signatures? Did they
seems to be
clarify?
what's been talked about. I don't remember whether it was a leak or whether it was an official announcement, but that both Wood Elves and Beastmen are going to have a full 7 spell lore that
Oh
they can then
wow,
pick
that
and use. I don't know whether it's locked. Usually it isn't going to be locked to army for me. Like for example, if you can
no. Typically, the Grand
yeah.
Army could take it.
Although, however, we did hear a little bit about having a new lore of magic for high elves, and it ended up being that the spellweaver, not spellweaver, that the new wizard character for the high elves could just use
Yep.
dark magic. So that was the new lore, right? So
So let's hold our breaths to just see what happens.
yeah, I'm hoping that that's not exactly what we're doing, because I do think that the wood elves could vibe with dark magic quite well because word of pain with shooting is very very good, but we
Mhm.
will have to wait and see. But
Yep.
yeah, the dice great, and then we have Orion. So man, as far as the old kits go, that was so beautiful. Like look at all these
Hmm.
leaves and being this kind of semi bestial dude who because like he does he throw spears or does he just have a bow? Because I'm used to the Total War
No,
idea where
he
he's
could
throwing
throw a spear
spears.
before, for
Yeah,
sure. I don't know if in this edition he's still going to
yeah,
be able to throw his spear, but he had his spear, his bow, his horn were all part of his magic kit. So curious to see what his rules are going to be this time around.
yeah. And I really like these got these little pair of wolves they're hanging out with him. I'm kind of curious whether he's going to be a skirmisher or whether they're going to be a group in open order or whether he can join units and do the dogs go with him. Like, how is this going to work?
Well, I would assume he's monstrous infantry.
Right.
I don't know about the dogs, so it would be. I mean, it would be weird if he didn't skirmish. I would be surprised if he'd be able to join in with the other units, quite honestly. But again, I don't know, so we'll
Yeah.
have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see.
So he can send allies into a frenzy with blast of his horn. So perhaps maybe there's going to be like kind of like one of those leadership test abilities where if you pass the test, then nearby units gains either frenzy or something like that, right?
Hmm.
And, I mean, if Wild Riders already have frenzy, so what are they going to get? Even +2 attacks? I don't know.
Yeah, don't know.
Yeah, the Hounds of Orion. So those are the Hounds of Orion. So that's interesting.
Hmm. Yeah,
Then
there
we
was
have
part of the hunt thing. Yeah.
right. So we have Erloth, Lord of Taliesin. So the Grove of Eternity, and I mean, as far as I understand, these guys are a bit more like a high elfy type wood elves, where they have a bit more like rank and file soldiers. So he's kind of an internal guard themed hero. So maybe we'll see like either extra elite version of Eternal Guard or just buffs to the regular unit, something like
Now,
that.
is this a new model?
No, this isn't new. This
It
was an
doesn't
eighth
look
edition
like it.
guy. Yeah,
It's a great. It's just such a good looking model, right? It just wow. I can't wait to see that on the battlefield, and people are going to make some really cool conversions with this too. I can't wait to see some fun kit bashes as well.
yeah. I can definitely see people just basically attaching a banner to this and being like, "This here's my BSB guy."
Hmm.
Although I really think that the special characters in this game deserve a lot of attention because they just bring unique and interesting things to the game. I just got out of playing the tournament where I brought Trace and I brought Corhill, the captain of the White Lions himself, to join and run around with some White Lions, and it was great. I really liked that experience. So, do super recommend people bring the thematic character that fits with the army and just go with it. And we have the very old, very classic looking Noodle Dragon.
Well, I mean, at the time, it's a fantastic model. Yeah, this one again, it's great that they brought the dragon back. I didn't honestly expect them to make a brand new dragon with this edition, so I'm at least glad they released the old dragon versus doing nothing. But yeah, maybe it doesn't hold up the test of time quite as well as some of the other models because this was not part of the later refresh range. This is definitely a more classic range model. But I guarantee you, there are going to be a lot of people who just love this model and have all those good, retro vibes from it and just want to get their hands on it.
So it does say the wings are plastic because I know that a lot of dragons that
Mhm.
were made out
Yeah.
of metal, the wings were just impossible to actually get to stick on there. So
Well,
that's
that
useful.
was the beginning, right? They first started all in metal, all in
Yeah.
pewter, and you had to pin them. It was the same with the greater demons, and just getting the wings. The weight of them was so difficult. But again, they were specifically modeled and sculpted in a way so they were trying to get the more of the bearing of the weight to be down where the sockets are. But yeah, later on, before they switched over to plastic or even resin, there was this gap where where they basically would have the metal model and then the wings themselves, which would be very heavy, they would have those in plastic. So yeah, there was this weird in between step before they fully converted to plastic where they did a bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah. So we've got returning metal characters. I mean, I've seen these kind of kits in the army books for so long now. And
Hmm.
especially the Spellweaver in the middle, who's kind of hovering. It's super iconic. I love it.
So
I
cool.
really like that
So
one.
cool. Yeah.
I'm wondering
I think
because
this models hold up.
if I remember correctly, it used to be that you would get like a blister pack that had like two of them in there, and it'd be like kind of the two of the sculpts or something. I think they've been selling them individually recently, but they have been pretty cheap. If they're the single metal blister,
Yeah.
like the Handmaiden of Athel Loren, she was like $15 or like something like that. So they
Yeah, there
generally,
were dual blisters in the past. I don't think
yeah,
they have. I would not expect that this time. I don't think they've done that in
yeah,
forever.
but they're a lot cheaper than they used to be, or at the very least, they're a lot cheaper than the current plastic solo kits because the individual metal models are more like half as much. I think now, so that's pretty
Well,
cool.
it's not really about the yeah, we'll see, because it's not about the materials. It's really just about when they're selling those individual character kits. Why they're charging so much is they sell a lot less of them. So they like, well, if we want if to make this worth their while, they need to charge, three or four times what they would charge for a single model of the same plastic material because you still had to pay the artist and manufacturing and everybody else to still make that kit, even though it's a single piece.
Wow, eagle riding guy. I'm not sure whether we mentioned
Hmm.
it in our elf review, but I think that the Warhawk riding Spellweaver is a really amazing build because the Warhawk gives you Feign Flight, and having Feign Flight on a wizard is now my favorite thing in the game because I can just be like, "Oh, you want to charge me? Nah."
No, we
Freaking
talked about it for quite a
so
bit.
great. Yeah,
Hmm.
very very cool here too. I really like this look that almost looks like almost like like the maiden of a ship kind of being carved. What do you call
Hmm.
that? The mast of the ship being carved into a
The
maiden
mass out of
here.
wood. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So part of it is this bestial like tree come to life, and part of it is this very beautiful carved wood look. It's a really interesting juxtaposition here with the branch wraith.
Yeah, it definitely you can look at some of the Treeman and the branch wraith here, and you can kind of see how the art style has evolved from it started earlier with versions like, well, first, we'll go back to them, we'll get to some of the Treekin. They're really just kind of just trees that are sort of in a humanoid shape. Then they started to get more fancy like the branch wraith, and then ultimately you start seeing the stuff in AOS where they just keep pushing and pushing their art style over the years.
Yeah. So here's our Wood Elf archers here. Really, really amazing. You get a lot of very like leaf themed kits here. They don't show it from
Hmm.
this side, but the cloaks are beautiful. And I really like their little half helmets that kind of cover half their face.
Hmm.
These ones are possibly even better. I mean, I'm curious if these little twirls and twangs here, if these are decals or something, because they look so finely done. I'm not sure because they said there's going to be several hundred decals on this sheet. So is that the kind of thing we're expecting, or is that just hand drawn on there? Because it's really
I
really
don't
cool.
know. I mean, I would like to say it's a decal because typically they would not for because clearly these are newer painted models. They're on the
Yeah,
proper square base sizes and everything, so they had to
yeah,
repaint new models. Traditionally, GW would not hand paint symbols and things like that for what's going to go on the box art because they obviously they don't want to show the customer something that isn't necessarily coming out of the box. So hopefully, let's cross our fingers that those are actually decals because that would be awesome.
yeah. These Glade Riders are very elegant horsemen. I think they have such a unique aesthetic of like being these really lean, light horses.
Hmm.
They're one of the
Yeah.
best light cavalries in the game, especially with that reserve move nonsense they can do. Super cool.
Hmm.
And we've got another one of some of the best light cavalry. You know that these guys actually have like open order and like light cavalry, so they can like march into a pivot and stuff. It's super cool.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
Love them.
And then we have the Blackbriar Javelin ladies over here, who used to be the Pillar of Fire death spam, but now they're a little bit less
They're still
overpowered.
they're still really cool. They're still really good. They're just not going to fling a whole bunch of pillars of fire.
Yeah, just roll for your spell. Oh no.
Mhm. They still have the ward save. They're still very good.
Yeah, and the Blackbriar Javelin is a great shooting attack.
It's still a great unit.
Okay, so we've got these metal guys here. So basically the Wood Elf range never got fully plastic, made
It
into
didn't.
plastic. I I really love the idea of the war dancers. I don't have a ton of the old medals or anything, but like these guys are making me think about it because I don't know if there's really any kind of imitation piece out there that has the same vibe as these war dancers that were carved originally. And I've got a lot of old metal dwarves and they look great.
Hmm.
Nice. I think it's the Waystalker. And then these are the Way Watchers. Nice. Weight Watchers are also super cool. Oh yeah, and here we've got the Warhawk dudes, and I like how they're riding them like surfboards. Like they have such man. That takes a lot of talent. See, that's why elves are so cool.
Yeah.
They're just
Well,
doing something no one else can do. Oh, and we have the
what
really
else?
old trees, right?
The really old trees, right?
Are there newer Treekin that are like AOS only, or these are just the
They're
Treekin?
no, yeah. So they're in AOS now because a lot of those, no, those are I forget what they call them in AOS, but they started first with the Tree Man, they're redoing it, so it's the much more dynamic, beautiful pose, and that got did move over to AOS. And then they moved over some of the refresh to the Treekin over to AOS, which matched the aesthetic of that Treeman, but they're not re-releasing them here because they're currently in the AOS range. So, but then they have the newer stuff now where they've gone away from AOS, which had that Treeman and the Treekin refresh, and they now have kind of the elf spirits coming out of the trees, and they've really gone a even further direction. So maybe we'll see some of those other models, which were towards the end when a lot of these plastics were refreshed, come back to old world in the future at some point. But quite frankly, buy whatever models you love, right?
Yeah,
So you want to use these older models because nostalgia vibes, you just like the aesthetics, go for it. You want to use the AOS models, I typically do. It's great. You can choose what you want. Win-win.
yeah, absolutely. And here we got a good example of that. These are some ancient models here. I believe these were made before I
These
was
are
born.
the oldest I think that they've re-released. Yeah, and in fact, these I don't even know if in eighth edition they had the beast
No,
packs
they did
even in
not.
the army roster, right? Like
Yeah,
this was retired for quite some time. So fun to see that it's coming back.
yeah. I'm very curious to see what kind of rules we're gonna have here. I imagine it's gonna be similar to like a, you know, like when Skaven have the pack master and a bunch of like giant rats kind of thing.
Maybe, but we see
Yeah,
boars, we see hounds, we see are those panthers or jaguars and a
yeah, and a
bear. So
bear.
I'm assuming this is part of Orion's hunt. So who knows? I don't
Yeah,
know what these are going to do. That's exciting.
yeah. We also have some like kind of like the fourth wave I think of the high elves, and I've been wanting one of these guys for about 15 years, so I'm very
It's an
excited for
amazing
this
model.
dude. Yeah, and they have great rules now, so you can have a noble on foot, and he could take lore master and make himself a level 1 wizard, which is not as cool as being a level 2 who knows all 8 signature spells from the main book, which is what he was before. So it used to be I was a level 2 who knew 8 spells.
Yeah, well, let's not focus on the past. Let's focus on the fact that you can
Crazy.
get your hands on this incredible model
Yeah,
because he
yeah,
is a
and
badass.
just get it for now, and then who knows what the rules are going to be in the future. That's what having a collection
They're
is
going
all
to
about. It's
evolve.
not about buying models that are do a specific thing right now. Buy the models that you like. And here's another model I
Hmm.
like: the Silverhelms. These guys, I just
Hmm.
finished painting the 9 of them that I have, and I'm trying to talk myself out of needing 12 more.
You might need 12 more, Evan. You gotta have a proper brick.
Well,
Great models
unironically,
though.
I have been thinking about trying to make like multiple high elf armies from different
Hmm.
regions. So
Yeah, and then you could give them different color schemes to represent the different lords of different areas. I mean, Empire players certainly do that. Bretonnian players do that. Yep, if you have an army you love, right? Find a way to have fun with it, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I have 60 spearmen, and 24 of them are trace already. So what the other ones are going to be, I don't know. We'll see.
That's okay. Going
Yeah,
to be
I don't
cool
think
though.
they're all going to be trace because that would be way too many.
No, and then some bonus, some arcane frogs,
Yeah, so this is for
right?
if
So
you
in case.
cast the scroll of transmogrification on somebody and turn them into a frog. You
Hmm.
now have. Although Mike, you already gave us frogs at our GT last year, so I
I
have a
did
frog.
that at the horrors of the old world when we did our Halloween themed GT. Everyone who attended, I made sure to give them awesome frogs, and we'll see later in this year. Hopefully, we get to do year two of that and do some more fun Halloween themed stuff.
Also, if you want to have a
Right.
Mark of Nurgle wizard on foot, great proxy right here.
There you go. Another way to go. All right. Did we get to the end of the old world?
Yeah, that was the end of the old
There we
wizard.
did. That was it. So really exciting there. Can't wait for Wood Elves to get back on the scene. So many players have been just love Wood Elves so much and have been wanting to get their hands on these models. And again, the 3D prints and other things out there didn't quite scratch that itch for a lot of players. So we're on the threshold of finally being able to get our hands on them. I know I'm going to at least pick up the dice, even
Yeah,
if I'm not playing Little Army, because they're just fantastic dice. So excited GW is releasing so many of the older kits, the newer kits. What a great time to be playing Old World.
yeah. Wood Elves by far the least common army to be seen at the tournaments, and I think it's mostly because of model availability. You either had an army from 15 years ago, or you just don't play them, right?
Yep. I think we're going to see a lot more of them real soon. All right, so that's going to wrap up this one, and we will catch you guys at the next video. Evan, any last words?
Elf yourself.
Oh, that's awful.
Go
We'll see you
elf
next time.
yourself.